I'm Margaret, 64 years old, and I never imagined my only son would betray me like this. After my husband passed away 5 years ago, I continued living in our family home, the one we'd paid off after 30 years of hard work. Last month, David showed up with a check for $25,000, telling me he'd sold my house for $1.3 million. "Go buy yourself a room in some dump outside the city," he said with a smirk. What he didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this day. If you're watching this video, drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear how I turned the tables on my greedy son. The first time I noticed something was wrong was about 8 months ago. David had always been a good son, at least I thought so. He'd visit me once a week for Sunday dinner call, to check in every few days, and generally seemed concerned about my well-being after Frank passed away. Frank, my husband of 42 years, had left us suddenly from a heart attack while working in the garden. The shock nearly broke me, but I had our home filled with memories to keep me company. Our neighborhood had changed dramatically over the years. What was once a modest middle-class area had become increasingly upscale as developers bought up properties and built luxury homes. Our little 3-bedroom ranch-style house, purchased for $68,000 in 1978, now sat on land worth well over $1 million. Frank and I had often joked about how we'd accidentally made the best investment of our lives just by staying put. David is our only child, born after years of trying. We poured everything into raising him. College fund, emotional support, boundless love. He'd done well for himself, becoming a successful real estate agent with a specialty in luxury properties. I was so proud when he bought his own home in an exclusive part of town. Perhaps that should have been my first warning sign. His lifestyle seemed more extravagant than his income would support. That Sunday, 8 months ago, David arrived with Chinese takeout instead of letting me cook as usual. He seemed distracted, constantly checking his phone while barely maintaining conversation. "Mom, have you ever thought about downsizing?" he asked, suddenly, setting down his chopsticks. "This place is awfully big for just one person." "Not really," I answered honestly. "This is my home, David. Every corner holds memories of your father." He nodded too quickly. "Of course I understand, but maintaining it must be exhausting at your age, and the property taxes keep rising." "I manage just fine," I said, feeling a strange defensiveness rising within me. "Your father left enough for me to live comfortably. I'm just thinking about your future." He continued, his tone too casual. "If you sold this place, you could buy a nice little condo with no maintenance worries and have plenty left over to enjoy your retirement. Travel, hobbies, whatever you want." When he left that evening, I felt unsettled. David had never shown this kind of interest in my living arrangements before. The suggestion might have seemed reasonable coming from anyone else, but something in his manner put me on alert. Call it mother's intuition. The comments about downsizing continued over the following weeks, growing more frequent and insistent. He started bringing real estate listings for condos and retirement communities to our dinners. "This one has a pool and a social director who organizes activities," he'd say, sliding glossy brochures across my kitchen table. "You could make new friends." "I have friends," I'd remind him. "My bridge club, my gardening circle, my neighbors of 40 years. David would sigh dramatically. "Mom, I'm worried about you rattling around in this big house all alone. What if you fall? What if something happens and nobody's around to help?" It was the classic concerned son routine, but it felt rehearsed. David had never been a particularly empathetic child. Frank always said he was too focused on himself to notice others' feelings. This sudden concern for my welfare seemed out of character. Then, I overheard a phone conversation that confirmed my suspicions. David had stepped onto the back patio to take a call, not realizing the kitchen window was open. "No, she's being stubborn about selling," he said in a low voice. "I'm working on it. Yes, I know the developers are getting impatient, but it's my mother, for God's sake. I can't just kick her out. Don't worry, I'll convince her. The commission on this deal will solve all our problems." When he came back inside, I pretended I hadn't heard anything. But that night, after he left, I sat in Frank's old armchair and cried for the first time in months. Our son was trying to push me out of my home for a commission. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. The next day, I made an appointment with Walter Green, Frank's old friend, and our family attorney for decades. If David was planning something, I needed to protect myself. "Margaret, I'm so glad you came to me with this," Walter said after I explained my concerns. "Unfortunately, I've seen similar situations before. Adult children sometimes view their parents' homes as their inheritance, rather than their parents' residence. What can I do, Walter? The house is in both Frank's name and mine." Walter adjusted his glasses. "Let me ask you something first. Is there any reason you would consider selling, not for David's sake, but for yours?" I thought about it honestly. I love my home, but I'm not naive. Eventually, I may need something more manageable. But that should be my decision when I'm ready, not because my son wants a commission check. "Then let's make sure you remain in control," Walter said firmly. "I have some ideas about how we might proceed." That conversation was the beginning of my plan. Not just to protect myself, but to teach my son a lesson about respect and consequences. As I drove home from Walter's office, I felt a strange mix of sadness and resolve. The son I raised would need to learn that his mother wasn't as helpless as he thought. Over the next few weeks, David's visits became even more frequent, and his hints about selling the house more direct. He started bringing up maintenance issues, some real, some exaggerated, as further evidence that the house was too much for me. "Mom, did you know there's a leak in the garage roof?" he asked one afternoon, coming in from supposedly checking my mail. "And the foundation has some cracks on the south side. These repairs could cost thousands." "Is that so?" I responded calmly, though inside I was seething. There was no leak in the garage, and the hairline cracks in the foundation had been there for 20 years without changing. "Frank always handled those things." "Exactly my point," David pounced. "You shouldn't have to deal with these worries at your age. Wouldn't it be nice to live somewhere with a maintenance staff to handle everything?" I began to notice other concerning behaviors. David would answer my phone when he was visiting, screening my calls. He scheduled a routine inspection with a contractor friend who spent more time measuring rooms and examining the property boundaries than checking any actual systems. Most disturbing, he began casually collecting my mail, offering to help sort through all those complicated bills. During one visit, I caught him going through Frank's desk in the study, rifling through our financial papers. "What are you looking for, David?" I asked from the doorway, startling him. "Oh, just seeing if Dad kept the warranty for your furnace. Remember how I mentioned it was making that strange noise?" He smiled too broadly, shuffling papers back into place. "The furnace is only 3 years old," I replied. The warranty information is in the kitchen drawer with all the other appliance documents where it's always been. His face flushed. Right, I forgot. After he left that day, I checked the desk carefully. The deed to the house was missing. A cold feeling settled in my stomach as I realized how far David was willing to go. I called Walter immediately. He took the deed, Walter. What does this mean? Can he do anything with it? Not legally, Walter assured me. But it shows intent, Margaret. I'm glad we've already set our plan in motion. The plan was moving forward, but not quickly enough. David's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He began showing up unannounced with various experts, a realtor colleague to just give an opinion on the house's value, a financial advisor to discuss how I could maximize the return on selling my property, even an interior designer to suggest updates that would increase marketability. I played along, appearing mildly interested, but non-committal. Each time I would say, I need time to think about it, or let me sleep on that idea. This seemed to frustrate David enormously, but he maintained his facade of concern. The tension between us grew palpable. Our once comfortable relationship had become a chess match with my home as the prize. Sunday dinners became strained affairs with David barely hiding his impatience behind tight smiles. Things came to a head when David arrived with Jessica, his girlfriend of 2 years. Jessica had always been polite, if somewhat distant, during our previous meetings. This time, she took a more active role. Margaret, she said, leaning forward with practiced sympathy. David is just so worried about you. We both are. Did you know that seniors who downsize report higher levels of happiness? There's actually research on this. I smiled pleasantly. Is that so? How interesting. And what field did you say your doctorate was? In Jessica? She blinked, taken aback. I don't have a doctorate. I work in marketing. Ah, then perhaps you're familiar with the concept of targeted selling, creating a need where none exists. David jumped in, his voice tight. Mom, that's not fair. We're only thinking of your well-being. Are you? I asked, setting down my teacup with deliberate care. Because it seems to me you're thinking of something else entirely. An uncomfortable silence fell. Jessica looked between us clearly, sensing the undercurrents, but not fully understanding them. David has mentioned a developer is interested in this block, I continued calmly, offering premium prices to assemble the lots for luxury condominiums. That would be quite a commission for the agent handling such sales, wouldn't it? David's face darkened. That has nothing to do with this, doesn't it? I held his gaze steadily. You've never shown such interest in my living arrangements before. Now suddenly, my house is too big, too much work, too everything. Coincidentally, right when developers are offering top dollar. Jessica looked at David with surprise. You didn't tell me about any development deal. Because it's not relevant, he snapped. I turned to Jessica. Did he tell you he took the deed to my house from your father's desk, or that he's been intercepting my mail, or perhaps about the conversation I overheard about commissions solving all our problems? Jessica's expression shifted from confusion to discomfort. David, is that true? David stood abruptly. Mom's getting confused, mixing things up. It happens at her age. That was the first time he'd ever suggested I was losing my mental faculties. A line had been crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. I think you should leave now, I said quietly. Both of you. After they left, I called Walter again. We need to speed things up, I told him. I'm afraid of what David might try next. Walter's voice was grave. I agree. Let's meet tomorrow to finalize everything. That night, I went through old photo albums. Pictures of David as a baby, as a little boy, holding his father's hand as a teenager at his high school graduation. Where had we gone wrong? What had we failed to teach him about respect, about family, about basic human decency? Or had this coldness always been there, hidden beneath the surface, waiting for opportunity? I couldn't sleep, haunted by memories and fears intertwining. By morning, my sadness had hardened into determination. I loved my son, but I would not be his victim. As the weeks passed, David's tactics grew more aggressive. He began showing up with documents already prepared, needing just a quick signature for things he claimed were routine. Insurance updates, property assessments, tax filings. I would review each one carefully, much to his visible frustration, and often refused to sign, saying I needed my own attorney to look them over first. "Since when do you need an attorney to review everything?" he demanded after I declined to sign what he claimed was a simple property tax form. "Don't you trust me?" "Trust works both ways, David," I replied. "And frankly, your behavior lately hasn't inspired much confidence." His facade of patience was wearing thin. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know what you're doing. I know about the development deal, about how you stand to make hundreds of thousands if you can deliver this property along with the others on the block." For a moment, he looked stunned. Then, his expression hardened. "You don't understand business, Mom. Yes, there's a development opportunity here, but that doesn't mean my concern for you isn't genuine. This neighborhood is changing. Property taxes are skyrocketing. Maintenance costs are rising. You're sitting on over $1 million in equity that could be making your life easier." "My life is perfectly easy in my own home," I countered. "The home your father and I paid for. The home where we raised you." David threw up his hands. "It's just a house. Mom, 4 walls and a roof. You could have the same memories in a nice condo with no stairs to climb and neighbors close by in case of emergency. If it's just a house, then why are you so determined to sell it?" He had no good answer for that. Meanwhile, I was meeting regularly with Walter and his team, putting all the pieces in place. We had discovered something alarming. David had been making inquiries about power of attorney, speaking to doctors about evaluating my competency. He was laying groundwork to legally take control of my affairs if I continued to resist. "This is more serious than we thought," Walter said gravely. "He's not just pressuring you. He's actively trying to remove your agency." "Can he do that?" I asked, truly frightened for the first time. "Not easily, and not without cause," Walter assured me. "You're clearly of sound mind, but the fact that he's exploring this avenue shows how determined he is." We accelerated our plans, filing necessary paperwork, making key connections, and setting up the mechanisms that would protect me, and if necessary, strike back. During this time, I reached out to my neighbors, discovering that David had approached most of them, as well representing himself as looking out for his aging mother, while conveniently handling the sale of their properties to the developer. Many had already sold enticed by offers well above market value. Mrs. Abernathy next door, however, was holding out like me. "That son of yours came on strong," she told me over tea in her kitchen, talking about how we're the only 2 left on the block, how we're holding up progress, how we could both make a killing if we sold now. When I said I wasn't interested, his friendly manner disappeared pretty quick. "I'm sorry, Elaine," I said, genuinely embarrassed by my son's behavior. "I don't know where I went wrong with him." She patted my hand. "Don't blame yourself, Margaret. Greed can corrupt even the best upbringing." Then came the day I'd been dreading, but half expecting. I returned home from my weekly bridge club to find David's car in my driveway. Unusual, as we didn't have plans that day. Even more unusual was the strange woman sitting with him at my kitchen table, surrounded by documents. "Mom," David said, standing quickly, "this is Patricia Winters. She's a realtor colleague of mine." "I didn't realize we had an appointment," I said coolly, setting down my purse. "It was a last-minute thing," David explained smoothly. "Patricia has a client who's extremely interested in your property. They're willing to make an all-cash offer well above market value." Patricia nodded enthusiastically. "It's an exceptional offer, Mrs. Matthews. $1.3 million, no contingencies, flexible closing date." I looked at the papers spread across my table. Disclosure forms, sales agreements, all partially filled out. "And you thought you'd get everything ready for me to just sign?" "We wanted to save you the hassle," David said. "You mentioned your arthritis has been bothering you. All those forms can be taxing." My arthritis was mild and rarely mentioned. Another lie. "How thoughtful," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm that David either missed or ignored. "And who exactly is this buyer so eager to purchase my home?" David and Patricia exchanged glances. "They prefer to remain anonymous for now," Patricia said. "It's a corporate entity looking to develop the area." "I see." I looked directly at David. "And what's your commission on this sale, son?" David flushed. "That's not relevant, Mom. What matters is that this is an incredible opportunity for you." "Indulge me," I persisted. "On a $1.3 million sale, what would your cut be?" Patricia looked uncomfortable. David's jaw tightened. "Standard commission is 6% split between listing and buying agents, but that's beside the point. So, around $78,000, I calculated aloud, plus whatever finder's fee or bonus this developer is paying you for delivering the property." "Mom, you're making this sound underhanded. This is just business." "No, David. This is my home. There's nothing just business about it." I gathered the papers from the table and handed them back to the realtor. "Thank you for your time, Ms. Winters, but I'm not interested in selling." Patricia began to protest, but something in my expression stopped her. She collected her things and made a hasty exit, leaving David and me alone. "You're being irrational," he said the moment the door closed behind her. "This deal won't be available forever. The developer is losing patience." "Then let them be impatient. This house is not for sale." David's control finally snapped. "Do you have any idea what you're throwing away? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You're sitting on a gold mine and you're too stubborn to cash in. Is that what I am to you now? A gold mine, an investment to cash in?" The hurt in my voice was real, despite my preparation for this moment. "Your father and I gave you everything. We worked hard to provide for you, to give you opportunities we never had. And I'm trying to do the same for you. You could travel, enjoy life, not worry about money." "I don't worry about money now." Frank made sure of that. David ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "You're being selfish, Mom. Think about what this could mean for me, for my future." And there it was, the truth finally spoken. "I see," I said quietly. "This was never about my welfare at all, was it? It was always about what you could gain." He didn't deny it, which somehow hurt more than all the lies that had come before. My son stood before me, a stranger, driven by greed, willing to push his own mother out of her home for financial gain. "You should leave now," I told him, my voice steadier than I felt. "And don't come back until you're ready to be the son I raised you to be." "You'll regret this," he said, grabbing his jacket. "When the developer moves on and property values drop back down, you'll wish you'd taken this deal." After he left, I sank into Frank's chair, and allowed myself to cry. Not just for the betrayal, but for the loss of the relationship I thought we had, for the son I thought I knew. Then I dried my tears and called Walter. "It's time," I said. "He's run out of patience. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." What came next was worse than I could have imagined. The situation escalated dramatically the following week. I was at my regular hair appointment when I received a frantic call from Mrs. Abernathy. "Margaret, there are people in your house, a moving crew, and your son. They're packing things up." I rushed home to find 3 moving trucks parked in my driveway and men carrying out my furniture. David was directing them, clipboard in hand. "What is going on here?" I demanded, pushing past a mover carrying a box of my kitchen items. David barely looked up from his clipboard. "I'm helping you transition, Mom. The condo is all ready for you." "What condo? What are you talking about?" "I found you a nice place in Riverside Gardens. It's a senior community with full amenities. You'll love it." I was speechless with fury. "You have no right to do this. Stop it right now." "Actually, I do have the right," David said, finally meeting my eyes with a cold determination I'd never seen before. He pulled a document from his pocket. "Power of attorney. Dr. Levinson examined you last month. Remember? He found you displaying early signs of cognitive impairment." My blood ran cold. "That's absurd. Dr. Levinson is my regular physician. He would never—" "Not your regular Dr. Levinson. His son, who's also a geriatric specialist. You seemed confused about which doctor you were seeing." David's smile was devoid of warmth. "Perfectly understandable mix-up at your age." I grabbed the paper from his hands. Indeed, it appeared to be a power of attorney document with my signature at the bottom. A signature that looked convincingly like mine, but that I had never made. "This is forged," I said, my voice shaking. "I never signed this." David shrugged. "It's witnessed and notarized. Your word against the documentation, I'm afraid." I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the police." "Go ahead," he said confidently. "Tell them your son is helping his cognitively impaired mother move into safer accommodations on the recommendation of a doctor. See how that goes." I realized with horror how thoroughly he had planned this, how vulnerable I appeared, an elderly widow whose son was looking out for her best interests. Who would believe my protests over his careful documentation? "The house has already been sold," he continued, his voice matter of fact. "Closing was yesterday. I acted as your power of attorney." "You sold my house." The room seemed to spin around me. "Without my knowledge, for your own good, Mom. You weren't thinking clearly." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a check. "Your portion comes to $25,000 after paying off some of your debts and covering the moving expenses." "What debts?" "I don't have any debts." He ignored my protest. "The condo is paid for the first year. After that, you'll need to budget carefully. But that's why I found you a place with lower expenses." I stared at the check in disbelief. $25,000 for my home of 40 years, a home worth over $1 million. "You're stealing from me," I whispered. "Your own mother." Something flickered across his face. Regret, shame, but was quickly replaced by determination. "I'm securing my future, the future you and Dad always wanted for me." "Not like this," I said. "Never like this." "It's done, Mom. The movers will finish packing your essentials. I've donated the larger furniture pieces since they won't fit in the condo. I'll drive you to your new place this afternoon." I felt a sudden calm descend over me, the calm that comes when a worst-case scenario finally arrives and you find yourself prepared. "No," I said simply. "No, David repeated, surprised by my composure. No, I won't be going to any condo. No, you haven't sold my house. And no, you don't have power of attorney over me. David's expression hardened. Mom, I know this is upsetting, but I held up my hand to silence him. Call Walter Green's office. Ask for extension 204. What? Why would I? Just do it, David. If you want to avoid being arrested in the next 30 minutes, call Walter's office. Something in my tone must have convinced him. Keeping his eyes on me, he pulled out his phone and dialed the number I recited to him. Extension 204, please, he said when someone answered. After a moment, his face changed. Yes, this is David Matthews. Yes, she's right here. He listened for several moments, his expression shifting from confusion to shock, and finally, to fear. I understand, he said. Finally, his voice barely audible. Yes, right away. He ended the call and stared at me. The color drained from his face. Who was that? I asked, though I knew perfectly well. Detective Ramirez, Fraud Division. David swallowed hard. He says I need to dismiss the movers immediately, and that I'm to touch nothing else in the house. I nodded, allowing myself a small, satisfied smile. You should do as he says. Mom, what have you done? I protected myself, I replied simply. Something I had to do when I realized my own son had become a threat rather than a protector. David scrambled to stop the movers sending them away with confusion and half-filled trucks. When he returned, he looked both angry and frightened. The detective said something about wire fraud, forgery, and elder abuse charges. He said they've been building a case for months. What the hell is going on? Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more comfortable, I suggested, gesturing to the living room that was now half empty of furniture. What's left of it anyway? As we moved to sit down, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of victory and the profound sadness that came with it. I had won, but at what cost? I've been working with Walter Green and Detective Ramirez for months now. I began once we were seated. Ever since I overheard your phone conversation about commissions and realized what you were planning. David's face registered surprise, then quickly shifted to defensive anger. So, you've been setting me up, your own son, no David. I've been protecting myself from your scheme. There's a difference. I kept my voice calm, though inside I felt anything but. After I consulted Walter about your increasingly aggressive attempts to make me sell my home, he suggested we contact the authorities. Your actions were pointing toward elder abuse, a crime they take very seriously. Elder abuse, David scoffed, but I could see the worry behind his bravado. I was trying to help you by forging my signature on a power of attorney document, by inventing medical evaluations, by selling my home without my consent, and pocketing most of the proceeds. I shook my head sadly. That's not help, David. That's criminal behavior. His confidence was crumbling visibly. The sale, it went through yesterday. The deed has been transferred. The money, no sale took place, I interrupted. The buyer was an undercover officer working with the fraud division. The developer was a fiction created to catch you in the act. Every document you forged, every false statement you made, every dollar you attempted to divert, it's all been documented as evidence. David stared at me in disbelief. That's impossible. I spoke directly with the development company. I met with their representatives multiple times. All undercover officers, I confirmed. Walter has connections in law enforcement from his days as a prosecutor. When he explained the situation, they were eager to help. Elder financial abuse is a growing epidemic, you see. They were happy to use my case to set an example. The truth was dawning on him now, his face ashen. The notary who witnessed the power of attorney, also working with the investigation. I nodded. The real Dr. Levinson, my actual physician, provided documentation of my recent physical and cognitive tests, all showing I'm perfectly competent. The neighbors who sold, some genuine sales, some part of the operation. Mrs. Abernathy, for instance, has been helping monitor your activities. David slumped back in his chair, the full magnitude of his situation becoming clear. I'm going to prison. That depends, I said, watching him carefully. Detective Ramirez said they're prepared to arrest you today. The evidence is overwhelming. Forgery, fraud, attempted theft, elder abuse. But I've asked them to give me some time to speak with you first. Hope flickered in his eyes. You can call this off. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I can't undo the evidence they've already collected, I explained. But as the victim, my wishes carry significant weight. If I don't wish to press charges for personal reasons, they might consider a different approach. Mom, please. David leaned forward, his voice desperate. I made a terrible mistake. I got caught up in the money, in the opportunity. I never meant to hurt you. I studied my son's face, searching for genuine remorse, beyond the fear of consequences. Why, David? We raised you better than this. We taught you about honesty, about respect, about family loyalty. What happened to those values? He looked away, unable to meet my gaze. Things haven't been good financially. Jessica and I, we're underwater on the house. Credit card debt, some bad investments. The developer approached me about assembling the properties on this block, offering a huge bonus if I could deliver them all. When I mentioned you lived here, they were especially interested. So you decided to trick your own mother out of her home, to forge documents and steal her property. I told myself it was for your own good, he admitted, his voice small, that you'd be happier in a place with less maintenance, that the money would help both of us. I convinced myself I wasn't really hurting you. But you were, I said softly, not just financially, but emotionally. Do you know what it feels like to realize your only child sees you as nothing more than a financial opportunity? Tears filled his eyes. The first genuine emotion I'd seen from him in months. I'm so sorry, Mom. I got lost somewhere along the way. Dad would be so ashamed of me. Yes, he would, I agreed, feeling my own tears threatening. He always believed you would grow into a man of integrity. David covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I wanted to comfort him, to tell him everything would be okay, as I had when he was small. But this wasn't a skinned knee or a failed test. This was a moral failure of devastating proportions. After several minutes, he looked up, his face streaked with tears. What happens now? That depends on you, I said. Detective Ramirez and the district attorney are willing to consider a deferred prosecution agreement under certain conditions. What conditions? First, full restitution of any expenses incurred due to your actions, including legal fees, moving costs, and damage to my property. He nodded quickly. Of course, whatever it takes. Second, mandatory counseling for a minimum of 1 year. Another nod. Third, community service, specifically working with organizations that combat elder abuse. I'll do it, he promised. And finally, a legally binding agreement that you will never again attempt to involve yourself in my financial affairs without explicit written permission witnessed by Walter or his successor. This last condition seemed to hurt him the most, the formal acknowledgement that the trust between us was broken. But he agreed to this as well. If you fulfill all these conditions and stay out of legal trouble for 3 years, the charges would be dropped, I explained. But any violation would result in immediate prosecution, with the evidence already collected. I understand, he said quietly. And what about us, our relationship? The question I'd been dreading. I don't know, David. Trust once broken isn't easily repaired. I love you. You're my son, and nothing will change that. But I don't know if I can ever trust you again. His face crumpled at these words, but he nodded in understanding. I'll earn it back, Mom. Somehow, someday, I'll make this right. I wanted to believe him. Part of me, the mother who had held him as a newborn and promised to protect him always, desperately wanted to believe that the good person I thought I'd raised was still in there somewhere. We'll take it one day at a time, I said finally, starting with getting my belongings back from those moving trucks and undoing the damage you've done. As we began the process of returning my home to order, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief that my plan had worked, sadness at the breakdown of our relationship, and a tentative hope that perhaps this crisis might eventually lead to healing. The house around us, saved from David's scheme, seemed to embrace us both with memories of better times. Frank's presence felt especially close, as if he were watching over this painful reconciliation between his wife and son. Mom, David said hesitantly, as we unpacked a box of family photos. There's something I need to know. When did you first suspect what I was planning? The moment you suggested I sell the house, I replied honestly. In all the years since your father died, you never once worried about me living alone here. Then suddenly, right when developers become interested in the neighborhood, you're concerned about my welfare. It didn't ring true. He looked ashamed. I wasn't very subtle, was I? No. I agreed. You weren't. Perhaps that's the one comfort in all this. You're not actually very good at being dishonest. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Dad always said I had the worst poker face in the family. He did. I confirmed, allowing myself to remember happier times. He also said you had the biggest heart. I hope he was right about that part too. As evening fell, we had restored some semblance of order to my home. David prepared to leave, standing awkwardly at the door. Detective Ramirez wants me to come to the station tomorrow to formalize the agreement, he said. Will you be there? I nodded. Walter and I will both attend. Thank you, he said softly, for giving me a chance I don't deserve. Everyone deserves a chance at redemption, David. Even you. After he left, I sat in the quietness of my partially restored home, holding Frank's photograph close to my heart. I did what I had to do, I whispered to him. Was it right? No answer came, of course, but somehow I felt peace settle over me. The road ahead would be difficult. Rebuilding trust with David, if that was even possible. Restoring my home to its former state. Processing the trauma of nearly losing everything. But I had survived, I had prevailed, and I had done so without sacrificing my own integrity. That, I decided, was victory enough for one day. 1 year has passed since that terrible day when David tried to sell my home out from under me. So much has changed, yet some things remain comfortingly the same. I still live in my house, our house, Frank's, and mine, surrounded by the memories we built together. The garden is blooming again. The roses Frank planted the year before he died, now full and lush. From my kitchen window, I can see new construction on some of the neighboring properties where genuine sales did occur. But my little corner remains untouched, a testament to persistence and justice. David has faithfully adhered to the conditions of his agreement with the district attorney. He completed financial restitution within 3 months, selling his luxury car and taking out a personal loan to cover the remainder. He attends weekly therapy sessions and has become an active volunteer with the Senior Protection Alliance, speaking to law enforcement groups about the warning signs of elder financial abuse from the unique perspective of someone who nearly committed it. Our relationship is complicated. We meet once a month for coffee at a neutral location. No longer the warm Sunday dinners in my kitchen, but something is better than nothing. Conversation remains somewhat stilted and careful, but there are moments of genuine connection, breaking through the lingering hurt and distrust. Last month, David brought me a small, wrapped gift. Inside was a simple silver frame containing a photo of Frank holding infant David in the hospital. "I found this while cleaning out some old boxes," he said. "Thought you might want it." The gesture touched me deeply, a reminder of the pure beginnings before greed and opportunity corrupted our family bond. "Your father was so proud that day," I told him, running my finger over Frank's beaming face in the photograph. He kept telling all the nurses, "That's my son, that's my boy." David's eyes filled with tears. I wish I could tell him how sorry I am for everything. "He knows," I said, surprising myself with the certainty I felt. Wherever he is, he knows. Walter Green still serves as my attorney and has become a dear friend as well. Under his guidance, I've established an irrevocable trust for my assets with clear provisions for my care should I ever become unable to manage my own affairs. The house will eventually go to a charitable foundation supporting affordable housing for seniors, my way of ensuring that my home continues to provide shelter and comfort long after I'm gone. As for the development company that tempted David with commissions and bonuses, they were genuine, though their representatives in the sting operation were not. After my story became public through the district attorney's press release about elder fraud prevention, the company faced significant backlash. They've since implemented an ethics policy prohibiting their agents from targeting family-owned properties through manipulation or coercion. Mrs. Abernathy and I remain the only original homeowners on our block. We've become closer through this ordeal, having tea together several times a week and watching out for each other in ways neighbors used to do everywhere. We joke about being the stubborn old ladies who wouldn't sell out, wearing the title as a badge of honor. The detective who led the operation, Julian Ramirez, stops by occasionally to check on me. "You're my favorite case," he told me during his last visit. "Most victims never get justice, much less orchestrate it themselves. I take no pleasure in having been part of a criminal investigation involving my own son, but I do feel a quiet pride in having stood up for myself when it mattered most. Too often the elderly are seen as easy targets, confused, trusting, vulnerable. My experience has become something of a cautionary tale in senior centers across the county, where I sometimes speak about recognizing the warning signs of financial exploitation. Even when it comes from those you love, I always emphasize, sometimes, especially then. The most unexpected development came 6 months ago when I received a letter from Jessica David's now ex-girlfriend. She wrote to apologize for her role in the scheme, however peripheral, and to let me know that their relationship had ended largely due to her inability to trust him after witnessing his behavior toward me. I realized that someone capable of treating his mother that way might someday treat me with similar disregard, she wrote. "I hope both you and David find healing, but I needed to remove myself from the situation." I wrote back, thanking her for her honesty and wishing her well. Her letter reinforced something I've come to believe deeply. Our actions create ripples far beyond what we can see or anticipate. David's choice to betray me cost him not only his mother's trust, but also his relationship, his financial stability, and his self-respect. As for me, I've discovered strengths I never knew I possessed. At 65, I've joined a community board focusing on senior issues, started taking watercolor classes at the local college, and even begun dating again. Nothing serious, just occasional dinner with Walter's widowed brother George, who shares my love of classic films and jazz. Life continues to unfold in unexpected ways. The house that David tried to take from me has become even more precious, not just as a repository of memories, but as a symbol of resilience. Each morning when I wake up in my own bedroom, in my own home, I feel a profound gratitude mixed with the lingering sadness of what transpired. David and I have a long road ahead if we're to rebuild anything resembling our former relationship. Trust returns slowly, in small increments, earned through consistent words, matched by consistent actions. I'm not sure we'll ever fully recover what was lost, but we're trying, and perhaps that effort itself is valuable. Last week, he asked if he could come over to help with some yard work. "The lawn's getting a bit long, Mom," he said during our coffee meeting. Dad would never have let it go like that. It was the first time he'd referenced Frank without evident shame, the first time he'd offered to come to the house since the incident. I hesitated only briefly before nodding. Sunday afternoon would be fine, I told him. I'll make lemonade. It's a small step, but maybe small steps are how healing begins. The house that almost came between us might yet become the place where reconciliation takes root. Have you ever had to stand up to someone you loved when they betrayed your trust? How did you balance justice with mercy in your own life? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and renewal, and share with anyone who might need to be reminded that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is setting clear boundaries with those who would take advantage of your generosity.